Hello there, saber fans. Today we're going to do a little bit of weathering on our sabers. And what I mean by weathering, and that's generally the process of taking, a more pristine lightsaber part. Usually these are anodized aluminum, and you're basically just removing some of that in a way that kind of makes it look like it's old and worn, like this. So these two used to be identical parts, but I've done some weathering on this guy, and it's kind of made it look like it's a little bit more old and used. There's other ways of weathering, like you can actually paint weathering on. I haven't really dabbled too much in that, so today we're just going to go the sanding route of weathering, and I'm going to show you kind of what you need to go ahead and do that. So the first thing that I like is get a set of files. The most important thing, though, is to get some sandpaper. So I've got two different types of sandpaper here. I apologize, I'm not 100% sure what the grit is, but this one, when I rub my thumb over, I can feel the grit. I can feel the individual sand grit. So that's kind of how coarse this is. And this is how you would get, you see these scratches here. So that's kind of how, that really roughs up the material. This second bit of sandpaper is a lot more smooth. When I rub this, it feels rough, but I can't feel the individual grains of sand. The next thing that I recommend is actually to get a bit of Scotch-Brite. So you can get these like dishwashing pieces at like a dollar store. I cut them into these little rectangular pieces, and it's really good for smoothing something out and kind of bringing back some of the shine on some of those edges. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm actually going to leave this piece as is. So what we're going to do is actually sand this switch section. Now I've removed the core. Normally when you get these lightsabers, the core is pre-installed. Actually, I just bought this as a separate part, but I have the core right here. And at the end of the video, I'm going to actually show you how to reinstall that. So if you've got a pre-built saber, definitely go ahead and remove it. There will be a screw in the back here. You remove that first, and then these screws above the recharge port and below the switch. Remove those, kind of push them down. There's plenty of videos out there that kind of show you how to remove the core. I'm kind of going to do that in reverse at the end of this video to show you that. So first, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to take one of my more flat files here, and I'm actually going to get working on removing some of that material on the edge. And that's just as easy as doing that. So you see that now some of that silver is shining through. And I'm trying to be careful not to kind of put any scratches here or in this groove here. So just take your time. If you kind of do it a little unevenly, it actually is better because it does make it look like it's been weathered from battle and different strikes and that sort of stuff. But what I like to do is kind of prep a piece, getting all the more hard edges, like the areas around these. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that real quick, and we'll see what it looks like when it's done. So as you can see, I've pretty much roughed up the entire edges. Another tip that I could recommend when you have a groove like this that has a hard edge on both sides, or even this larger groove, get a file that actually has kind of a rounded edge. And you can angle it in a way that actually rubs both edges at the same time. So as you rotate it, you're actually minimizing some of your work. Like so. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is kind of move on to, we start with our more coarse grit, and you can just kind of wrap that around. You can either, depending on how rough you want it, like if you really, really want to go almost to a gray like this, you can just wrap this around and kind of just go back and forth. I'm not going to actually do that with this. I'm actually going to more target. So what I'm going to do is just fold it like this and just kind of go over those same edges that I just did. And this will add just a few little scuffs and scratches and stuff across the entire thing. See, we're getting some of that going on there. Next, I'm going to move on to the softer sandpaper. Now this one I am actually going to just kind of do that on that outer edge. And what this does is it actually takes away some of that sheen that the anodizing black has. Makes it look a little bit more dull. You know, and you can go as much as you want with this. You don't have to, you know, there's not really one point in which you're done. So just kind of go as far as you want to take it. I always finish off with this Scotch-Brite just because it kind of smooths out if there's any like really jagged edges. Just makes it a little bit more comfortable to hold. Sometimes as you're sanding, you might, you know, pull up a little bit of aluminum that might be a little bit sharp. So this kind of just eliminates that. And there we go. So again, I'm going to keep this kind of as light as that right now because it actually matches some of the weathering that I did on this pommel piece. And I do kind of want this to match there. So really this one was mostly just a file and a little bit of sanding. So I did keep most of that anodize there. So let's go ahead and just do a little bit on the tip of this, and then we'll go ahead and put the saber together. Another thing that you'll notice, especially if you've got black anodized pieces, is that you're going to get a lot of this kind of rub off. And that's fine. One of the things that you want to make sure that you do before you actually put any electronics in it is you just want to really make sure to clean off all your pieces because you don't want any of that aluminum dust to get into the electronics. So I recommend getting a soft tissue, getting it slightly damp, and just going over all of the parts. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all these up, and then we'll get to the core. All right, so to put your core back in, you want to make sure that you orient the LED up first so that you've got your switch hole and recharge port hole, and you just kind of slide that up in there and then kind of get those aligned. And then you want to take your 3mm screws and you just get those lined up in here. And what you may end up having to do, especially if you notice the recharge port is really low in there, so I'm going to actually have to pull that up. So one of the things that you might need to do before you actually get to this point, once you get them lined up, is just kind of give it a tap. And that brings that up a little bit so that you can actually get a good grip with your screws. There we go, that's a good grip. And it's good to kind of do both sides. I focus more on that recharge port just because I wanted it to get a little bit more up front and center. But as you get closer to the end, it's important to go ahead and do both. Just go back and forth so that they come up as aligned as possible. All right, so we give that a nice tighten there and there. And then you're going to have this tiny little pointy screw, and that goes in the back. And what that does, it just kind of holds the back of the core in place. You don't need to have these super tight. So what I like to do, once I got this done, I go ahead and put in the grip section. Now, with this particular loadout, I've got several different pieces. So let's go ahead and put it together with the most weathered. And then I've got this. This is kind of a separate project that I had where I just took metallic paints and painted on that kind of scoring effect. And there we have it. I hope you guys enjoy, and as always, get to customizing your sabers, and I hope you have fun, and may the Force be with you.